Today we're going to be talking about the Girsan MC312 shotgun. Now Girsan kind of started its name in the pistol market, and then they branched off into the shotgun world, and I think they're kind of gearing this gun for the waterfowler mainly. They also make a turkey version of this gun that's a little more expensive. Now the MC312 is basically a Benelli clone. A lot of the patents ran out on Benelli and people have just started to knock them off. The inertia system, the feel of it, everything about it is almost identical, and I'd be surprised if some of the parts aren't interchangeable. I don't know if they are or not. I've looked on some of the forums and I've not got a definitive answer on that. Now if you watch the channel, you know for the past several seasons I was using the Beretta A300 Outlander, and also if you follow on, you know that that gun was just an absolute disaster. So much so that I will never buy another Beretta again just strictly because of that gun.
That's freaking trash, son.
Not that they're all bad, some are good, but mine and other people's that I know were absolute trash. Now, I never heard of Girsan before, and I actually had a subscriber that's turned into a good friend of mine, Craig Orr. You're my boy, Blue. He was watching the videos and he was just feeling sorry for me, man. There's no other way to say it. My Beretta basically turned into a single shot, and he said, we got to put an end to this. Out of the blue, he just contacted me and said, hey man, I'm gonna get you a new shotgun. I was super thankful that I was gonna be getting a new shotgun, but I was a little concerned because I never put my hands on one, and the fit and feel of the shotgun is everything. You should not look at the brand of a shotgun. You should go put your hands on it and see how it feels, because that is gonna matter everything. Now my first impressions of the Girsan when I got it, thankfully, was that the fit was amazing. If I had to describe or compare it to a fit that I felt in other shotguns, it would be the Benelli Super Black Eagle 3. That was actually the gun I was wanting before I got this one. I was pleasantly shocked that it feels almost exactly like one. If you close your eyes and I put this gun in your hand and then I put a SBE3 in your hand, I guarantee you it'd be tough for you to tell the difference between the two. One unique thing about the Girsan is the buttstock, just the way it's shaped. I've never really seen many guns with the shape that this has. It's got a curvature to it, just kind of its special on angling, and it seems to just work perfect for me. That's gonna be different for everybody on how a gun fits them. Another thing that just immediately stood out to me, especially after having the Beretta A300, was that it just feels really well made, especially for its price. I mean, this is a cheap gun. They MSRP at like $450, which is significantly cheaper than the Beretta, but the bolt on it, everything about it just feels a much better quality than my previous gun. On my Beretta A300, all the edges on it were sharp. There was no machine polishing done to the gun, whereas on this gun, even though it's at a much cheaper price, they went through that extra step to smooth everything out. There are no sharp edges anywhere on this gun, which that isn't a big deal. Oh, why would you care about, you know, if it's smooth or not? That just tells me they took that extra step to not cut corners, which if you get a gun that's sharp all over, that's a telltale sign they're trying to make that thing as cheap as possible and probably get as much for it as possible. For this gun to be like $200 or $300 cheaper than a Beretta, and for them to go through that extra step of polishing every piece on here, that just says a lot to me. But the second most important thing about the Girsan that I love is that it's inertia. Again, my previous gun was gas, and I don't see myself ever going back to a gas shotgun. You can look up, you can Google all the pros and cons, and anybody can say what they want to say, but just in my opinion and experience, if you are a hardcore waterfowler, or really hardcore anything where you're going through, putting the gun through some harsh conditions, the inertia is just going to be much more reliable. There's trade-offs to everything. The gas operation is going to have lighter recoil. I don't really know what else gas would be good for, but the inertia, there's just less working parts. It's a much more simple process, and there's just less to go wrong. Speaking of that, I shot many rounds out of this in rain, snow, and everything else, and not one hang up this past season. Another awesome thing about the inertia is that super easy assembly and disassembly. Super easy to clean, not very many parts. I mean, it's very simple. And for field stripping or anything like that, this gun is super easy and simple to take apart. Not a lot there. When you go with an inertia shotgun, they're typically going to be lighter, and that's also the case with this one. It's a lighter than average shotgun, I would say. Another awesome thing about it is that it will chamber everything, 3.5, 3-inch, and 2 3/4. So if you're into that, that's a good pro to this one. For a $450 shotgun to be able to be a 3.5, I mean, that's incredible. The features in this for that cheap is just mind-blowing to me. They just kind of went all out on it. I mean, look at the sight on this gun. I mean, it's not just the best sight ever, but for a stock sight, That's a lot better than what my last gun was. And it stands out. I mean, I like that bead. It's very visible. It's kind of like a high vis bead. It's just the little things that some companies do that others don't do that just kind of stand out to me. And I like the sight on this gun. It's also got a sweet, kind of unique camo pattern. I'm not even sure what this camo pattern is. Realty? It says Realty. I don't know who it's made by or anything, but I've not seen it on many guns. It's kind of like a mix between a Max 5 and a Shadowgrass, I'd say, which I'm not usually a fan of. I'd rather have Bottomland or black, but this is kind of a darker, it's not like Shadowgrass. It's almost more of a Bottomlandish color. It's pretty cool. I really like it. And if you're getting a cheap semi-auto, I would always get some sort of camo because it's kind of like having an already Cerakoted, coated gun. It's going to protect it from rust a little better. Another thing that's great about this gun is that it uses the Beretta Benelli mobile choke systems. I was able to take my pattern master that went my Beretta and just stick it in here. So if you got aftermarket chokes for Beretta or Benelli that are of the mobile system, they will fit in this gun. That's pretty cool. And the gun does come with some stock chokes with it, but I always use pattern master full. And the last thing about it that's awesome is that it's cheap. Like I said, it's $450, but everything has cons. Let's talk about the cons of this one. And the first one is it's cheap. It being cheap's a pro, but it being cheap is also a con, because one thing I've learned in the duck hunting world, typically you get what you pay for. And at $450, I'm just weary of this gun. Now, mine's been awesome. I've loved it. I've not had a single issue out of it, but I've only shot 200 rounds out of it. I got it just after teal season last year. Usually the cheap guns start showing their true colors about season 3 or 4. The first year or two, they're great. Now, a huge con for this shotgun is that it's made in Turkey. From all that I've gathered from people I've talked to, it's really hard to get parts for this gun and to get it worked on. So that's something to think about. If you have problems, you're probably gonna have a headache trying to get those problems solved. I've not heard a lot about their customer service, so I don't know if it's good or bad. It being in Turkey, I'm just guessing it could be problematic, but who knows. Another aspect that people might not like about this gun was, like I said earlier, it's inertia. So it's gonna kick more, especially if you shoot 3.5s with it. Now, there's this huge movement in waterfowl hunting right now that there's some people who really pay attention to recoil and they don't like it. I don't know if it's the way I was raised or what, but we just never talked about recoil. But that's just me. Some people have shoulder problems or it may mess with their jaw, but thankfully I just don't have any issues with recoil, so I only care about it being reliable. But if you're one of those that don't like recoil, this is going to be a light, inertia driven shotgun, so it's gonna it's gonna put a little pop to you when you pull the trigger. And I did notice inside the choke portion here, where the threads are, there has started to be some rust already, and it's only a year old. Now, I haven't got any rust anywhere else on the shotgun that I've noticed. For just one season to already see a little bit of rust in there, that's kind of disappointing, but as long as it don't spread or get worse, it'll be all right, at least for a while. And I'm not the kind of guy that just leaves his choke in there all the time. I take it out fairly frequently through the season to make sure it's cleaned and everything's looking good in there. So I was kind of shocked that it rusted this quickly. Another small drawback to this gun is that it does not come with any shims or anything, which if the gun doesn't fit you, you're gonna have to go you're gonna have to go to some aftermarket products to make it fit you. So for me, I shot really well with this gun. It fits me perfect. It didn't hang up any, but it's only one season. It was 200 and something rounds. Let's see what it does after 3 seasons. So I wouldn't jump to any hasty conclusions off this video. If you are just absolutely dead set on getting a budget semi-auto, I would say give this one a shot. It's definitely doing me well, but only time will tell how good these guns are. There's not a lot out there as far as reviews on them.
Call me the Joker, call me the fool. When she calls